Welcome back to Passionate World Talk Radio. Educate, enlighten, entertain. And this morning on Cool Your Heels with Lillian, our special guest is Stan Deluca, who is a marriage counselor, which means relationships. So good morning, Stan. How are you today?
Oh, great. Actually, it's Phil Deluca, but that's close enough.
Phil. Oh, geez. Apologize.
No problem.
Well, to me it is. Names have always eluded me. Show me a face and I'll remember it for the rest of my life. Names, dates, locations, not so much. So, Phil, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience, telling them who you are and what your background is?
Okay, well, Phil Deluca, I've been doing marriage counseling and relationship counseling for 40-plus years, over 40,000 situations. But my main specialty is on communication and conflict resolution. 40 years ago, I realized the current approaches then, which are still popular now, express yourself, talk it through, never go to bed mad at each other, didn't work as was touted. As a matter of fact, they seem to be making situations worse. So over the last 40 years, I came up with figured out why they don't work, and came up with an alternative that does work where they fail.
All right. Well, that sounds pretty good. Now, in today's sea crisis, how do you take that a step further? Because they're going to be on each other's nerves 24/7.
Yeah, that's going to make it a lot more difficult. I was seeing a couple the other day who had intense conflict, and they were like, yeah, we seem to be in a lose-lose situation. If we stay together, we may kill each other, but if we leave, we may die. So we can't win no matter what we do. But anyway.
Did you suggest maybe they should just text each other for a while?
That might work. That might work much better. Because basically, the latest mind-body science, which says that when we get upset, blood reroutes from our thinking front brain, music, love, spirituality, intelligence, executive decision-making, to our back survival amygdala brain, dark, weak, doom, gloom, conflict seeking. If you ever been upset and heard yourself having this internal dialogue, stay calm, I don't want to stay calm, this is a bunch of crap, I'm not going to take it. That's actually the two parts of the brain dialoguing, and you're hearing the words. And then as stress keeps rising, the blood gets rerouted from the front back to the back brain, and you go into what's called amygdala hijack. I call it crocodile brain hijack, where the back brain takes over, and now people will say things like, I know I'm getting there, because it's like words are coming out of my mouth, but I can't do anything to change it. It's like I'm seeing a film of my life unfold, and I'm helpless to stop it. Have you ever felt that way or seen that going on in your life?
Well, I just finished a 30-year marriage. My husband passed in September. But I found when we really started arguing, I would tell him, I'm going to put myself in timeout. Because one of the things I found, actually the advice I gave to my son and his wife was, don't fight in the bedroom. Go to the kitchen, go to the dining room, go to the garage, but don't fight in the bedroom. Because you don't want to do that, because something's going to be said, because then you're throwing passion into everything and emotions, which you don't want to do. But I usually put myself into time off, or my son, who was a teen when I remarried, says to me, okay, I'm coming in with a whip, a gun, and a chair. Back off. And I think what he was trying to say is the same thing that an adult would say to themselves. It is time for me to leave, because nothing I'm going to say is either going to come out right, or I may even make it worse.
Yeah, that's exactly right. However, most people don't know that, and few, if they do, can't do it, because the last 50 years, the system, my peers, has been encouraging people to get it out. Never go to bed mad at each other, or you're running from the problem. Does that sound familiar?
Oh, yes. Or go and write it down, and then words can't hurt people, but they can if they pick it up from the waste paper basket.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Stay in touch with your anger. repressed anger kills, no secrets, tell them how you feel, talk it through. That's the kind of stuff that, unfortunately, has been put out there. People have seen it as settled science. They're doing it, and it's just horrible. The research shows that not only doesn't that work, but it will increase the problems both in your relationships and destroy your health, because that increases stress, and stress is the source of most diseases. I mean, it's got its hand in everything. So that actually is a killer of love, personal peace, and even of people's health. It destroys relationships and health. I mean, this is horrible.
I would think that by now we have learned that it's time for us to evolve a little more.
Well, go ahead. It would be nice if we learned that, but actually, my peers, they're still doing it. They're encouraging people to talk it through, rules of fair fighting, lists of do's and don'ts. Don't get in their face. Don't bring up old topics. Stay on the subject. The problem is when we get upset, our front brain clicks off. Blood actually reroutes to the back brain, and we're only on 25% blood flow, so it's like a leg falling asleep. We can't use it. Nobody runs or walks when your leg's falling asleep. You wait till it recovers before you get off the chair and you walk. Well, why are we encouraging people when they are upset and the front brain is falling asleep to interact with the other party? We're just giving more fuel to this conflict-seeking, destructive brain. Seek, kill, destroy. So you give people rules, laws, right and wrong, do's and don'ts. They get up when they're calm. They get upset. They cannot access that information and do the exact opposite, which is the science says is exactly what's going to happen. And they fall on their face. They have the argument. They conclude. When that repeats over and over, they go to their therapist. He encourages that. Okay, now let's go over this again. They can't do it. What it does is they conclude that we must be hopeless and even more of a failure than we originally thought, because we can't follow the rules that the books, the internet, and our therapists are saying, so we're even more hopeless, and that pushes it to the next level. You follow where I'm going with this?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I know my dad, whenever he really got into a really big fight with my mom, he would just look at her and says, I'm going for a walk now. We'll discuss it when I've calmed down.
And that's actually brilliant. That's what the latest mind-body science is telling us. It's the best thing to do is stop talking when you're upset if you want to communicate, because it's in a constructive manner, because all the communication then is going to be destructive. Rip, kill, destroy, seek, conquer.
Well, that if you watch all the crime drama on 2 of the or 3 of the stations that they have up on cable, so many spouses kill each other with guns or knives. So then if they do it 50 times, it's a crime of passion. And I'm thinking, well, why didn't they try and do something to fuse it before it came to the point where they had to pick up a lethal weapon and destroy the person?
That's the problem. See, when this amygdala hijack occurs, I call it a crocodile brain hijack occurs, once you cross that line and you can't turn it off. You ever seen somebody who's calm 1 minute, and then when they get upset, it's like an alien takes over their body, and you're like, what kind of creature is this that's taken over? And then they get calm, they sleep it off, or they laugh about something, and the alien leaves, and the person's back in control of themselves. Oh, that's the person I fell in love with. That's the 2 brains in control of the person. And that's actually what happens when this back brain takes over, amygdala. There's actually it's an alien body. It co-opts every part of our body. We're giving our survival brain, I'm about to be eaten by a bear, life-threatening situation, permission over our own over everything. So it takes over our physiological state. It warps our view, our moods. It distorts our relationship, and even over time warps our brain as it wires around that, and we become hyper vigilant, very constant ruminating negative thoughts, constantly anxious, constantly angry, The slightest thing sets us off. So that's what we're doing. We're giving this brain permission to take over, and survival trumps all. So if you give it permission, it's made to destroy the enemy coming at us. The problem is, all they did was put the spoon in the dishwasher in the wrong direction. That's all they did.
Or is it Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde?
Yeah.
I think that's what it is that when we get that angry, we release a chemical, which is what you're saying, that alternates, not alternates, what's the other word? Anyway, it alters how our brain functions. So we're no longer functioning at a reasonable conscience level. It frees up our inhibitions.
Yes, our seek, kill, destroy, dark, bleak, doom, gloom, paranoid, you versus me mentality, and if I go down, I'm going to take you with me. So that's the problem. Current communication and conflict resolution approaches actually encourage that encounter. That's why they have such a poor success rate. And the ironic part is, a lot of people can fix their relationship really quickly if they just had an alternative approach. So that's what I came up with over 40 years. I tweaked it, and actually I'm offering a free webinar, Stop Your Fighting Tonight, a 50-minute free webinar. Your audience is glad to share it with them, and it shows the science behind it and how to stop the fighting immediately. As soon as you turn it off, you've got the skills and the knowledge to do it right there.
That's excellent because, ladies and gentlemen, whatever your behavior is, don't kid yourself. Your little 1-year-old to 2-year-olds, their antennas are up and listening, and they're also studying you while you're acting out your anger. So when they could become teenagers and they throw that anger back at you, it's you who taught them how to act that way in situations that arise.
That's exactly right. We're training them for the next generation, teaching them habits, and then they're going to do the same thing, unfortunately.
Absolutely. That's why abuse is so bad in that respect, because it goes from one generation to the next unless you put a stop to it. So tell everybody what time, what link, where they need to register, because I think this is very important. I know that if you don't live in a large house where everybody has their own space, like me and my son, we grew up in a one-bedroom apartment, and whenever I wanted to vent, I would go into the bathroom and turn on the faucet. That's how I handled it. And I know every time he got angry, I had bought him one of those punching bag type things that sit on the floor, and you fill it up with air, and I would tell him to get it out on that. And we went through a lot of them, but it was a lot better than him saying, I hate your guts, I wish you were dead, Mom.
And that's exactly what the research shows. You do not want to engage when you're in this mindset. People now, here's one, never go to bed mad at each other or you're running from the problem. I hear that from everybody. But and that one actually does work because they don't go to bed mad at each other. They don't go to bed. They argue all night. Then they have these text wars or rages for the next 3 days, pages and pages of this vomit. They puke all over each other. And then about the 4th or 5th day, they have a truce out of sheer exhaustion. They agree to stop it. So that, and then they go to sleep. So that one actually does work. It just takes 5 days, and there's so much collateral damage that they never recover from because they put stuff out you can never get back. So actually, the system you developed with your husband is exactly what the latest mind-body science is telling us. So I developed a 5-step approach, which you and him were doing. 1, be aware of when this is a bad time to talk. I'm not in a good place, or you are not. 2, break off, put a pause switch in there, go somewhere and detox. Step 3, detox these chemicals now. Drain it off. He had a punching bag. Music, calming music. Go for a walk. Any spiritual life you have. Meditation. Humor. Get focused on something else. Start a gratitude journal. And now that you're calmer, what's the signs you're calmer? So let me ask you this. What was the sign with your husband that you could tell or he could tell he was calmer, and now let's talk about it, let's re-engage? What was the sign? Did you feel calmer?
I think it was his tone of voice.
Okay.
It was, I mean, he didn't come up and say sweetheart or darling. He was a scientist. He was very analytical. He was an organic chemist, doctorate from Harvard, and that was his life. And occasionally he let the personal in, but he could get angry quickly. And one of the things I found, it was his tone. It was not menacing. It was not like, I am going to take my whatever he used in the lab and stab you with it 115 times. I'm going to act like the person I am, the professor that I am, and we're going to sit down and I'm going to listen because I'm really good at listening. I always felt like saying, prove it. But that was it. I mean, it was just his body language, of course, which tells you a lot about a person.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's the sign that the front brain has re-engaged our executive decision-making, our ability to process information accurately and form proper evaluations has been re-engaged, and that's the time to talk about it. Now, a lot of times there's no issue to even discuss. Oh, I was just upset. That's crazy stuff to get upset about. But when it's a legitimate issue, if you're going to approach it, that's the time to approach it. So that's my step 4 then. First one is be aware of what's going on within you and the other party, and I talk about that in my video, how to spot the signs. 2, put a pause switch in, get away, calm down. How you're going to calm down, detox those physical chemicals floating in your body and doing a lot of destruction. It's called fight, flight, not sit and ferment. So they're real destructive. We're not meant to stew in our, we're not entitled to these feelings. The body's like, you want to be entitled to them, fine, but I'm going to keep turning on these highly toxic stress chemicals, and cancer risk goes up over time, 3,000%, heart attack, stroke risk, 2,000%, autoimmune, dementia, diabetes risk. I mean, we pay a high price to hold on to these as our God-given right to ferment, resent, and not forgive. And then step 3 is detox these. Step 4, re-engage. And step 5, what do you do? How to navigate through the other party's attempts to provoke an argument. So I talk about step 1 and 2 in that webinar, and that's enough for most people to stop their arguments.
And if you feel that this will help you, remember there are a lot of nasty arguments at work. Witness everybody going into work and killing innocent people with guns because it just makes them feel like they're in control. So this is something, I mean, relationships, doesn't matter whether you're married to them or you love them or you live in the same house or dormitory. It doesn't matter. It's the basis, it's the root of all evil if you do not learn how to communicate with whoever you're working with, because that's what basically it comes down to.
Yes, that's exactly right. And, you know, this free webinar, I've got a 5-step course on how to implement all those, really inexpensive. It's only $169 that you can access or not. I mean, your viewers can. But, you know, regardless, that free webinar will give people the science. I've got about over 100 PowerPoints. I put on different masks to show when the alien comes in us and not. It's a lot of funny stuff. You know, people are trapped at home right now. Why not sit down, look at it, and discuss it? And may give you a whole new paradigm view, a whole paradigm shift into what works and what doesn't, and what you're doing wrong and what to do right. Works really well with kids because when they go into that alien brain, you know it.
Yes, I was going to say, if you have kids, more than one, sibling relationships, if not properly nurtured by the parents, can lead to hell.
That's right. And that thing, talk it through with your kids, Oh, gosh, what a disaster that has been.
Oh, they're not listening. They don't hear you because between the ages of 12 and 25, they know it all. There's nothing you can't tell them that they don't already know by osmosis.
Yeah, all you do when you try to talk it through is they twist it and distort it, and they jujitsu now, and you're upset. They've got control. They've got the power. So that's another disaster, talk it through, that's been applied to the kids. And never, I remember, the mantra at the time was always talk to your kids. Talk, talk, talk. Well, what happens if they're in this back brain and all they want to do is provoke an argument, twist, distort, justify, accuse you? The more you talk about it, the more frustrated you're going to get. And then you end up getting pulled into this argument. You get pulled into your crocodile brain, as I call it, and the two of you there's just fur just flies. And that happens over and over. So, people are trapped at home now. Sit down, have the family. This will be good from kids 12 on, maybe even younger, probably 10 if they're really sharp, 10 up, and sit down and look at it. It's very simple. I did it for the lay person, the average person, and just go over this information. You're home anyway. You're running out of watching Netflix shows, so
Netflix is turning itself off because they want to free up the internet ban. But one other thing you can do, and I'm sure that Phil does provide this, have a family meeting and lay down some ground rules.
That's good, but remember, when the kids get upset, they're not going to follow it.
Oh, I know that. I mean,
parents have to lead.
And it's especially bad if your child is 10 inches taller than you are and outweighs you. My kid wore size 13 by the time he was 14, 15. All right, folks? He was 6 foot something, and he outweighed me a lot. But at the same time, he also knew that I didn't argue with him.
That's the key. Yeah.
I just didn't even get started with him because I knew I was going to lose. Even before I opened my mouth, I was already wrong, and I didn't understand it, and you don't get it, and what do you know? And you came across on the back of a dinosaur. Things have changed.
I like that.
So
That's exactly right.
You just don't get started. And hope it diffuses, because kids do kill their parents. I'm sorry, but they do. Yeah, that's what I have. That's my fifth step, how to navigate through someone attempting to provoke an argument. And kids got that down to a science a lot of times. They'll just push and push and push. You go into the other room to get away from them. They come, they whine, and so on and so forth. But, you're the parent ultimately, and you have to take a stance. And here's the punishments. You keep this up, we take the phone away, we take your trips away, and just keep putting on the punishments and maintain control. And the other thing you need to remember, and I know this is hard for a lot of parents who want to be a friend to the kid, A, don't be a friend. B, you're the parent, they're the child. C, my son hated my guts for 6 years until he moved out and went to college. And then all of a sudden he realized how good he really had it at home. Yes. And D, he knew the safety net was up for him until he graduated from college. So if he was going to make any stupid mistakes and act like a jerk between the ages of 18 and 24, this was the time to act like a jerk and make his mistakes. Because once he graduated, I told him, it has nothing to do with how you raise. It's you who give yourself permission to do the things you did. And I wash my hands because my job is done. The next stage is your stage. Yeah, good advice. Yes. And he says, Mom, I have to do that with the twin suit, and God, is it hard? I said, I told you I'd get my revenge. But what it really is that you have to make them understand that you are only responsible to them for a certain amount of time, and then after that, they're on their own. That's why they're adults now. Although you see a lot of adult children still living at home for various and sundry reasons. In Europe, they do it because it isn't that easy with extra housing. So, but they have a different system. You would do very well over in England. But because a lot of women still live with their parents, and they're already in their 40s or 50s.
Yes.
But it's a whole different structure over there as well.
Yes.
But parents, you have to realize that you're here to parent your child, not to be their best friend. Because best friends agree whatever their friend is saying, and you can't afford to do that.
Good point.
Oh, I make them occasionally. Okay, Phil, please tell everybody where people can find you on the World Wide Web, where they can find your webinar, and anything else you feel would be good for them to know.
Well, it's all on my website, gobeyondtalktherapy.com. Gobeyondtalktherapy.com, and they can reach me there. If anybody listening would like me to come and do a retreat, workshop, I'd love to do it. But my course, as soon as you click on that site, my course will pop up, my free webinar, and just sit down and listen to it. I think it could be the best 50 minutes you've spent with this whole quarantine period.
Yes, and I think, too, since the quarantine period will probably last longer than 15 days,
yes,
I would recommend that not only do you listen to it, but get your kids to listen to it.
Yeah, and then talk about how to implement it, given the circumstances of having to live in the house.
Yes.
Not getting space. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen and children of all ages, you can hear this interview all over again with Phil Deluca, all at https://passionateworldtalkradio.com. Right-hand side menu, scroll down, cool your heels, and voila, or in English translation, here it is, and you can hear it. If you are not digitally competent, we have a telephone line for you. It's called a sizzle line. Punch in the numbers, and you can listen to it instantaneously. It's all over social media, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, iHeart, iTunes, Spotify, Alexa, all of them. So please go and take a listen. And before you go away and stray, Christian Morgenstern had this to say in 1900, it is one of the oddest things in the world that you can read a page or more and think of something utterly different. Don't do that with Phil's course, okay? Until next time, thank you very much, and remember, stay healthy.